Jamie Mighti. Jamie, good morning, good afternoon rather, and welcome to the PM edition of Newsfeed, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, good afternoon, and Happy New Year to the viewers.
Jamie, whose idea was this free trade agreement amongst African countries? Why only now in the 21st century? And when did the discussions on this begin?
So the timeline for this agreement is around about 2012. Several African leaders started bringing up the idea of creating a continental free trade area in Africa. It took a long time before that idea actually started gaining momentum in the right way. And what we saw was that Paul Kagame was one of the people, the president of Rwanda, who pushed for the idea more aggressively. And in 2018, the process really began in earnest with several countries signing the agreement that was required. What we then saw in 2019 was that the requisite number of signatures was reached. And as a result of that, the requisite number of ratifications was reached. And as a result of that, the momentum began building up. And then in 2020, we were supposed to see the launch of the trade area on the 1st of July. But obviously that was delayed by COVID because in-person negotiations could not happen as stated by the African Union officials. And what we finally see now on the 1st of January 2021 is that finally the trade area is operational.
So while Paul Kagame was traveling the continent trying to convince African states to sign up to this agreement, Uhuru Kenyatta was going across the continent campaigning for African states to, become independent and, draw out of, the World Health Organization and various other entities, global entities, in particular the ICC. That was around his trial at the ICC. Is this deal about African independence, or is this deal just about consolidating African power?
Well, this deal fundamentally is an economic deal because one of the challenges Africa faces is that its intra-Africa trade levels are low. Intra-Africa trade levels in 2017 were around about 15%, the amount of trade happening internally. When you compare those levels with other countries, you will find, for instance, that the European Union has got over 50% and that Asia also has 50% of intra-regional trade. So the idea is if you can increase inter-regional trade, what you can then do is one, increase the amount of GDP of all of the participating countries, two, increase the amount of business activity for small businesses, three, create youth employment through those opportunities, and four, create a baseline for industrialization of the continent. Because as we all know right now, the continent is heavily reliant on extractive resources for trade with the international community, extractive resources including minerals and oil. And there's a demand, or rather an appreciation from continental leaders, that you cannot grow your economy the right way on extractive industries. You need to actually start benefication. And one of the ideas is you need to do the benefication by increasing intra-Africa trade. Now, the question then becomes, what was the obstacle to intra-Africa trade? One of them was tariffs. The other is non-tariff barriers. So this particular agreement exists to, one, remove tariffs progressively, and two, to remove non-tariff barriers with the objective of increasing intra-Africa trade. Actually, the aim is to remove 90% of tariffs across the continent within the trade area in the shortest amount of time possible. The current average for tariffs across the continent is about 6%.
And how many of the tariffs are now removed by this deal, and how many will be progressively removed? And when you say progressively, how long are we talking about? Are we talking about a year? Are we talking about a couple of years? Or are we talking about at least a decade of ongoing negotiations?
Well, the current situation is that what has happened is market access offers have been made by a variety of countries. Market access offers are their original starting point in terms of the tariffs that they are willing to remove in the first stage. So 30 countries have made currently the market access offers. Obviously, it's a territory with 55 countries and 54 have signed on to the African trade agreement. So you've got about 24 countries which have not yet made these market access offers. So the market access offers are the first step in the process, getting continental-wide market access offers, which then outline what countries are willing to remove tariffs on in the first instance. So there'll have to be extensive examination of all of the tariff offers from different countries, Nigeria, South Africa, to see what tariffs have been removed, what tariffs still remain, and then negotiations will then ensue. The deadline that has been identified for this is the 31st of January, the optimistic deadline as outlined by the president of Ghana, that they want to at least see these market access offers made by all of the countries by the end of the month. The next barrier then is making sure that all of the operational instruments of the African trade area are fully functional. And there are 7 operational instruments. 1 is an online platform for tariff negotiations. 2 is an African Trade Observatory. 3 is a digital payment and settlement system. 4 is an online mechanism for reporting and monitoring of non-tariff barriers. 5 is a mobile application for business activities. 6 is a repository platform for a database for customers to be able to perform due diligence on products that they're buying. And then 7 is a $1 billion adjustment facility to manage any adverse losses from the opening of the trade area or the opening of trade across the continent. So these are the steps that need to happen. And the optimistic view is that all of the operational instruments will be fully functional by the 31st of March 2021. So in this 3-month period, we should then see more clarity on the offers that are being made by different states, and we'll be able to then track the progress of the 7 operational instruments that need to be operational. By the way, these offers need to be submitted with the Secretariat, which is headquartered in Accra, Ghana.
What's the risk of an African country pulling out of this? We saw, for instance, that Morocco pulled out of the African Union and then tried to get back in, and now there's a political contestation around this. What's the potential for something like that happening with the free trade agreement?
Well, it's a very good question. And I think looking at the Brexit outcome, there is a risk that a major economy could at some point decide that they are unhappy with the agreement. And this all has to be finalized in dispute resolutions, but the risk does exist. And what we did see was that Nigeria was very reluctant to sign and was one of the last signatories. And Nigeria has been taking a protectionist approach to certain industries that they view as important for growing their local economy. So the challenges that exist are that large economies could find that industries that they prioritize are adversely affected by this agreement. But it could take a long period of time before we get to that particular politics, because as we've outlined now, everything is just nascent and not fully in motion. But that risk does exist, and it's a very prevalent risk when you are looking at trade agreements. I think right now, the challenge is going to be seeing whether or not the protectionist elements affect the offers that are being made, because some countries may offer tariff restrictions that are not really going to change much from the status quo. And what that effectively means is that you will still be trading with those countries at similar levels to the old agreements, which were the regional agreements which were in existence.
Yeah, I would have loved to talk about some of those regional agreements, but we have unfortunately run out of time. And I mean, yeah, that Nigeria signature did take quite a while. Who'll forget when Ramaphosa in 2018 had to fly to Nigeria to go and convince President Buhari that signing on is in the best interest of Nigeria. Around the same time, President Buhari also made himself the Minister of Oil in Nigeria, which is Nigeria's biggest export to the rest of the continent. But Jamie, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it, and hope we can continue this conversation when some of these negotiations continue and reach milestones.